This is Madden Chronicles. It's in the game. This is my unfiltered, no nonsense journey through solopreneurship with yours truly, Maya Madden. Get ready for some real talk, a pinch of no holds barred truth, and a whole lot of authenticity. Join me as we master the art of consulting one truth bomb at a time. Hello, everyone. I am so excited today to have Peter Lohmann on my podcast, Madden Chronicles. It's in the game. And Peter, thank you so much for spending some time with me today to chat about a few things. We are going to talk about Peter's awesome experience in property management. As you all know, he's an industry leader. Lead Simple. I've got Discover here, so you can call me Captain. But thank you, Ben Smith, for teaching me about the blue whale out there. I'm going and fishing, trying to find that.
Love
And
it.
yeah, we can talk about, some of the evolution we've seen in the industry. So thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Yeah, happy to do it. This should be a fun episode.
Yeah, awesome. So Peter, why don't you tell me about your experience throughout your property management career relative to some of the new technology that we're seeing in the adoption of that technology?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started in property management about 15 years ago, just self-managing our own rental properties, just a handful of single-family rentals that my partner and I had purchased. So at that time, we were not using any technology. I think we stumbled onto Buildium, but that was it. We didn't have, there was no Lead Simple yet.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think most of the self-showing software was around yet.
What year was it?
This would have been, well, we bought our very first rental property in 2008.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, we were just using Excel at that time. And then we signed up with Buildium probably in like 2011 or 2012. And then I quit my engineering job and started RL Property Management in 2013.
Mm.
So at that time, we were just self managing a handful of our own single family rentals. And then we started taking on third party accounts in like the middle of 2013. So I've seen the evolution of technology from basically the last 10 years is when I've been professionally paying attention to what's available for third party, SFR managers. And in some areas, I've been on the cutting edge. In other areas, I've been conservative. And some of that it's changed over time, mostly having to do with where I am in my own journey.
Okay.
In the early days, I was very anxious to try new technology, anything that would save a few minutes. And the company was so small. At first it was just me, then me and my co founder, then we just had one or two employees. It was really easy to roll out new tech and try things out because there were just so few people involved, so few hands involved. There wasn't a lot of process, there wasn't a lot of overhead. So we could pivot quickly and try something. And if it didn't work, we'd go back. So at that time, I was really into testing and trying out new softwares once we launched that third party management company.
Mhm.
But more recently, I've started to become way more conservative with what I'm willing to experiment with,
Okay.
partially because we're bigger, partially because there's more people involved, more clients, more tenants, more employees. And also, I'm just in a different place personally where the property management company is somewhat running on autopilot, and I'm kind of loath to disrupt what's working
Mm.
just on the off chance that we could save 1% on some random, metric. So it takes a lot to sort of nudge me off the tech stack that we're on right now, but it doesn't mean we don't make changes. I think every year we make at least one major change. It's
Okay.
just that we're not making five or six, in a given
Yeah,
year.
like in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in year two. So, I'm calling year three the Valley of Life. I know that typically entrepreneurs call it the Valley of Death, but we're taking on the life approach here. So that'll be in April of next year. And we are constantly, alpha testing different softwares.
Yep.
But I agree with you because I actually had my first large staff cut in July. So, I had my first cut on that front. And I remember just this feeling of like, oh my gosh, now I'm going to have to rescale the team. And so I'm thinking of, my conservatism in the form of human labor. I'm finally overcoming that first cut roadblock and we are rehiring again, but that fear, settled in a little bit. And then I took a really hard look at our software stack, and we had a huge software stack. And honestly, the adoption of software with 35 employees in your second year of entrepreneurship, it it was tough. And so
Mm-hmm.
now with the smaller team and being more strategic about our SaaS stack, and then also knowing, okay, now we have a bit more understanding about what roles we need to bring on, what experience they need to have in softwares that we may not be experts at, that may not necessarily be niche to our industry, but necessary for our industry. And I can definitely relate to you on not rolling out 5 softwares like
Mm-hmm.
all at once versus picking one. And how would you say over time, that evolved for you? I'm really interested to learn, as a young entrepreneur, you
Yeah.
brought on more employees. What year was it where you decided, okay, this is the main change? Like, what does that mean when you say we do one main change versus 5 or 6?
Yeah.
Obviously, we can talk about that in terms of SaaS, but obviously the adoption goes hand in hand. What did that look like for you?
Yeah. So for us in 2023, well, let me just talk about like the last 2 years because we've kind of made three major changes in the last 2 years. One was we moved from Process Street to Lead Simple Process.
Yeah.
The
A
second was,
lot of them.
yeah, the
Yeah.
second was that we started using Property Meld. So that was a big change. And the third was that we started using Lead Simple Inbox and their shared inbox feature there. And they were staggered out, right? There was like at least 6 months between each one of those over the last 2 years. Um, and those are the types of changes I'm talking about, right? Not just like updating an email template or slightly tweaking the org
Yeah,
chart, but major sort of almost architectural changes to
absolutely.
how the work gets done. Now, reflecting back 10 years, there's a couple things that I've really gotten clear on that I'll take with me moving forward around this topic. And I touched on this at the Lead Simple conference that I spoke at last week.
Mhm.
One is you should always try and use the existing feature set within software packages that you're already using. So if you're using Buildium or Appfolio or Lead Simple or Property Meld, and it does something kind of like 90% as good as you really want it to, but you're tempted to bring in a point solution to capture that last
Mhm.
10% best in class, there's always a tension there on, is it worth having a whole other software package and separate logins for your team and a separate payment and everything. I lean more and more toward using the features that are already part of the software that you're paying for, even if it's not quite as good. The value of having that integrated and your team already being familiar with it and already having a login, it's already part of their workflow, you're already paying the bill. There's just some stability there and some efficiencies and economies of scale that kick in, especially as you get larger and larger.
Agree with you 100%. And
Yeah,
100% is good. And I mean, isn't that also what we think about in terms of, hiring someone to replace us in a role as entrepreneurs? We want to own the outcome and the way that we presented it, to our prospective client who is now a paying client. But you just have to know that. And I have a great client, Mike Mefford, who owns Bridgestream Property Management in Ohio. Just phenomenal. Him and Jason are incredible. I spent a lot of time with them at NARPM Nationals. If you saw me running around with those two, they're awesome. But, he actually was the one that really helped me overcome my rehire fear. And, he just kind of mentioned, with every new person that I bring on, I have this expectation of they're going to be able to do it 50% as well as me, as long as, my recruiting practice is dialed in. But then that training and that failure comes into play. And, I believe with my leadership experience in the past, I had known that, but only to a certain extent. Very different when you're the one feeding
yeah,
everybody versus when you are the one being fed to train people. And then
yeah.
you
It's
have
different.
who just don't get ruffled and you're trying not to get ruffled. So I definitely agree with you because it's on both sides of making sure that this person, has the skill set to leverage an entirely different software. So it's, that 10% may feel like so imperative to try to get to 100, but then you're adding an additional 50% of skill set that needs to be acquired to leverage And
Yeah.
that's a lot. I would take 90% over, a hopeful, 40% adoption rate with
Right.
those calculations included. So
Yeah. The
I
other
agree
thing
with
is,
that.
the folks in our industry get so twisted around the axle about this specific technology and the specific software, see the omnipresent arguments in the forums about Buildium versus Appfolio versus Rentvine versus Propertyware. I was just looking at one this morning. Almost every day, there's someone asking, "Hey, what software should I use?" And then
Do you
everyone's
think it's
chiming in.
political though? I wonder because I know, and I have a lot of clients that are in every franchise and they are married to their software stack
Yeah,
because of the franchise they're in versus, a private property management owner who does third party management, but, is not a part of a franchise, isn't married to their software stack. So sometimes when I see those threads, there is a bit of bias there. And I wonder if that's why. What
well,
are your
there is, but
thoughts
what I've really gotten clear on is that it doesn't matter.
on that? Okay.
It doesn't matter what you're using because there's examples
Software wise.
of property management company owners using each of those softwares that's gotten to 2,000 units.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if there's been hundreds of property management company owners that have taken Buildium over 1,000 units, maybe don't worry so much about the specific software that you're using when you're at 150 and just focus on growing or the other bottlenecks that exist in your company because the software ain't it. That's not what's holding you back.
Um,
Like, and I know like the salespeople who, they're screaming on the other end of this, the people who work for Appfolio and Rentvine and everything, and they're just like, no. But I'm telling you, like, business owner to business owner, um, just get to 1,000 units, and then we can talk about like the specific
absolutely.
details of the software that you're using.
Yeah, I hear the two
Um,
hundos scream and shout about, what they
yeah,
do or the four hundos. And then, I mean, because I agree I use Lead Simple 1.0 at GK Houses and I closed 455 doors. My first,
exactly.
like, we didn't have all of the, bells and whistles that we have now. I mean, I was DMing with Zach Compass and Amy and Jordan, back then. And just, I would notice something like a feature request that I would like. And they would put it into their rollout map, but I didn't need that to close over
You
30 dollars
don't.
a month. I didn't need it. And so,
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
you don't need some specific feature of some software to lease homes or grow doors or send out owner statements. Of course there's, quality of life improvements, and some things are easier with some softwares than other.
we had,
It doesn't mean you should never reconsider. It just means that the people who are just it's and you see some people like every month they're posting again and again and they're getting so hung up on it. So that's like,
it might be paid a referral fee of some,
well, yeah,
might be some of that. I know there's a lot of that that goes on as far as
there
like
is.
backs and things like that. And that's one of kind of my struggles I see when, someone is pigeonholed into a SaaS stack because, there are royalties on the other end that are, obviously part of that, but then on the flip side, the royal king of the SaaS stack is getting paid per user, and I see that, but I also see that on just kind of the one-off industry leader who is like really hard pitching one software. For every referral they send, they get a kickback, which is why I have declined every single like channel opportunity because I want it to be unbiased. And
I
I
love that.
agree with you wholeheartedly, and I appreciate that you say that because I also think it just comes down to like there is enough business for all of us. Like, isn't the United States like the place where we shouldn't monopolize things? Like, I mean, that's the precipice. And obviously, that is, always the war on reputation and what is best and what is most popular versus what is best. But
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen so much evolution. So let's talk a little bit about what you do behind the scenes for Lead Simple, because I've seen a lot of what you've done, but
Mm-hmm.
like this is your place to talk to some of my clients and my network. So I'm excited for them to hear what you're
Yes. Yeah. So I'm involved with Lead Simple in a few different ways. First and
doing.
foremost, I'm a customer. So I started with Lead Simple CRM in like 2016 or 2017, I think.
Mhm.
I went back and found some emails with Jordan like way back the other day.
Yeah.
Um, so we've been using that CRM product for years and years. I mentioned that we started with Process, probably about 18 months ago now. It was like shortly after they rolled out the Buildium integration that we onboarded with Process. And then about a year ago, Jordan invited me into a long term consulting arrangement with the team there. Actually, Wolfgang Krosky and I both started around the same time. I think it was about a year ago.
Okay.
And so we are in their Slack. We show up at their team meetings. We go to their team offsites. We show up with them at conferences. And we're really kind of being a voice of the customer within the company and relaying feedback from our own audiences and our own customers and our own industry friends and partners to try and help them make the software better and give them feedback on potential new feature ideas or just prioritize bug fixes that are hitting the industry.
That's so.
So
Did
that's been
Jordan send you my Lead Simple Christmas wish list?
no.
Well, he did send it to his two lead engineers, so I saw.
Nice.
But I
I'm
love.
sure there's some good stuff on there.
Oh yeah,
Um,
some great stuff. And they've already implemented a couple things and rolled out a couple of things that I just been seeing, just a few little things and then some big things. Obviously those will, come
yeah.
with time, but the shared inbox feature was a big one that I wanted. And I love that they re-rolled that out. And,
Yeah, they're investing heavily in
I would
that.
give I would pay money to be a fly on the wall at one of y'all's offsite. I miss offsites with Jordan. I call him
So
the
fun.
stores, but I mean, that's just such a small way to explain who he is and how deeply he thinks. I mean, I never had an issue presenting a concept and him not resonating with it, and then
Hmm.
being able to provide the expert guidance on how to, go about it. And then the course correction is just something I just love that, you know, everyone's business is on fire all the time. We're all just putting it out, but I just really love that he's taught me a lot about how to just stay calm through just the storm. And
Yeah.
I've learned and seen that at massive scale too, during my time at landing. I actually wish I would have asked for Lead Simple when I moved from GK Houses, which is now Evernest Property Management, to Landing, which was founded by Bill Smith. I've said this before, but he founded Ships, the grocery delivery service app.
Hmm.
And uh, I remember the day my mom made her first order. Imagine an attorney, 12-hour shift, finally gets to make a grocery delivery service. Order that gets sent to the kids so she doesn't have to go in heels to the store, and she like cried that day. And she tells me
Yeah.
that gets a little bashful when I talk about her, but she's just one of my biggest heroes. And that just company meant so much to me. And again, him and Whitaker were in the same small group, and he was moving into the multifamily arena because he had sold Ship to Target for 550 million. And then when he started Landing in the corporate housing multifamily space, he had asked me, what CRM solution we needed. Well, my very first experience with CRM was at Pac Health when I worked for Sanjay Singh, who now is also a major partner of a property management private portfolio of like 250 or 2,500 properties across Alabama, CS Equities. But he was one of the investors of Pac Health, and one of the leaders there in Salesforce was our CRM solution. And we used Fast Slow Motion as our consultant. But, at my next firm, 6-figure budget for, a rollout of a cloud-based software was a lot. And I loved Lead Simple because it was simple. I didn't have to kind of worry about learning Apex code. But when Bill asked me, like which CRMs, I was like, okay, well, here are my experiences that I've had so far because, I was the first salesperson there with the goal of leading the team. And we rolled out Salesforce. And again, every CRM solution, has something awesome and something left to be desired. Well, Salesforce is the toolkit in Chinese that you have to build by yourself or hire
Hmm.
to do it and pay them a huge bag. Forget, maybe a 10 grand implementation fee. We are talking, a ton. And the rate of scale at 400 employees within the first year, I kind of wish we would have gone with something a little more simple because Bill ended up he was so pissed off at Salesforce, and we had an in-house engineering team, and obviously, Ruby, Java, like those are, their preferred languages. So Apex was not a code that they loved. It's not a
Hmm.
favorite code. I'm a big nerd when it comes to that. So um, I think about that experience a lot, what it would have been like from an adoption standpoint, but also, I know God has a reason for everything. And with 400 plus users, I wonder what it would be like now, considering, well, now he's already built his own proprietary one himself, of course. But it's interesting. I mean, that's just for his niche space. And he has his own host app. Of course, he had experience building, a gig app prior to at Ship.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on just it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, it's really cool to see like niche solutions, like especially for SFR that evolve to the needs of our clients. Because I mean, if I was starting my own third party property management company, I have my own, private STRs that I manage, but I mean, that's what I would use. So I
Yeah.
think, and that's just, again, it's one of many on the market. I also have other clients who, really love Apply. Apply is really great as well. I would consider, leveraging that for some of my STRs because, they integrate with a multitude of different types of processes and or process builders that they haven't necessarily built, but that integrate with their solution that I like. And I know that Lead Simple integrates and you can use Zapier to do like whatever
Mm-hmm.
you want in addition to their married integrations with Appfolio, with Buildium, with Rentvine. And I'm seeing so much adoption of all of those platforms. And yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited because we are actually hiring our first implementation and integration specialists. And they're going to be taking kind of some of that off of my plate. And most of those users are utilizing Lead Simple right now, and then all of the main property management software. So it's been cool to see, but I agree with you. I think vendors get in a tizzy, and something I love about Jordan, and very similar to Whitaker's mentality. I mean, they're doing their thing. It's them versus
Mm-hmm.
we've got all of these potential clients, and we have the bloody waters over the small percentage of acquisition, versus the blue whale. Go find your whale, and obviously this is more B2C. Well, B2B, obviously an investor is a business owner, but still kind of B2C in the sense of how many
Yeah.
clients versus our property management industry. So I would like to talk a little bit about sales education in relation to Lead Simple, because I've been getting a lot of feedback from my business development managers and now my appointment setters that our industry has adopted, which is great. So I would have given my left arm for one back in the day. Imagine what I could have done, Whitaker. I'm just kidding. We didn't even know about what a BDM was, let alone, what SDR was or an appointment setter was. That NARPM, which I love. I love the National Association of Residential Property Managers. Every time I go, I always leave with something. But I'm getting feedback consistently that the conversations surrounding growth are anemic. And I agree. I mean, we talk about the inbound lead providers and the CRM solutions, but we're not deep diving into, strategies around business development. And I think you have built one of the most profitable portfolios and you have your own goals. Every property manager has their own goals. Like if you want however many doors, however many units, that's great. That's your personal goal. But tell me a bit about your experience, and what you've learned relative to sales. That is something you haven't heard about on stage at a panel, because typically it is all ops related for the most part. And we do talk about some client acquisition strategies. I'm not saying we don't at all, but my business development managers and, some of my setters that would have the ability to go that no longer go, that's their feedback.
Yeah. Great topic. So I think that the industry has really matured around the topic of sales. You kind of touched on that just recently here. Like there was a time that no one even knew what a BDM was. No one had a BDM. There was no Lead Simple. Now all those things are true. There's been a whole ecosystem that's sprung up around BDMs. You've got RentScale, you've got Lead Simple CRM. So
Mhm.
it's entered the common parlance at trade shows and conferences to talk about your sales guy, my sales guy, your BDM, even SDRs and appointment setters. That is all starting to become very mature and understood. Compensation, job descriptions, where they fit in the org chart, all that stuff. What I still think is very immature within our industry is the discussion around marketing. I
And
don't feel like there's well defined and well articulated marketing solutions for third party property managers yet. There's some that are working on it, like Discover and like Blanket, and there's a bunch of others who are dipping their toe in the water talking about how to find and reach your potential customers. And we've always had,
yeah, like from an
PPC.
outbound marketing perspective versus
Yeah.
the casino Google SEO. And I agree with you on that front because, back in the day when there wasn't such saturation and you had content, it was easy to throw money, in the
Mm-hmm.
Google SEO casino ring and see a ton of return, in inbound leads. But now client acquisition costs, which is something I think a lot of people don't think about. They think I'm paying APM $50 per lead. I'm paying, Geek Marketing $150 per lead. And I love both of those, like it just depends on your budget and what your goal is. But when you think about how much you're paying your business development manager, or if you, the owner operator, are the one closing, please calculate your hourly rate and determine how many like hours it's
Yeah.
you, how many leads lost because you do not have the time it takes to follow up properly. And I agree with you that the BDM role has definitely matured and is becoming more adopted within our industry, and that's awesome. But we're not considering like your client acquisition cost, for those inbound leads are north of $1,000 most of the time. And I mean, imagine just the time spent on a refund if a tenant filled out the form, as we always know. And I agree with you that there definitely needs to be more education on the difference between sales and marketing. But I also think there's a middle ground between sales and sales operations that is still missing. I
100%
think
agree.
yeah,
Yeah.
I see so
You
many BDMs tied in, data enrichment, scrubbing, making sure their CRM campaigns are fire. And that is sales ops. And it's so important. It's
yeah, you,
imperative.
you turned me on to that turn of phrase when we
Oh,
spoke
really?
last,
Oh,
sales
yeah.
ops, and I've
Okay.
been using it
Yeah.
because I really saw once, there's power in language, there's power in words, and the right word for something can sort of unlock a part of your brain. I'm a big believer in that. And as soon as I heard you say sales ops, I was like, yes, that's what's missing. There's a lot of work that's happening by the BDMs, and there's a lot of work that's happening by the marketing groups, but the little details of how things connect and the email campaigns and what's the language on the email template and did we update the website, all those little things that connect everything together and make a cohesive experience for our leads, that sales ops activity is not being paid attention to in our industry very much. So I
Yeah.
love that. I also feel like, there's some tension between, you articulating the importance of measuring your spend, right? What's your customer acquisition cost? Look at your sales expense, look at your marketing expense. And I'm a big believer in that. And I think most property management company owners need to get clarity there. But there's a tension between, especially marketing activities, which tend to have a longer runway, and
Yeah.
also, frankly, just some of it isn't going to work. And Jeremy has really turned me on to this concept. It,
On
like
what,
some of
what,
the
what won't work?
yeah, some of the money you spend on marketing is not going to work,
I
but
mean,
you have to try stuff.
you alpha test may not come
Yeah,
to fruition. I absolutely agree
yeah,
with that. And I can appreciate that as well. I actually had a conversation with him a couple months ago, and I was telling him, just about the evolution of the appointment setter role because it is somewhat of an outbound marketing role. Someone's cold calling, breaking the ice, they're not pitching price, 100 dials a day, voicemail drops, automatic email campaigns, like that's outbound marketing. And he was like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, it's that first tier of a segmented sales campaign. And he was telling me about, some of his BDMs that are crushing it. Yeah, BDMs that crush it too. But my experience there was incredibly valuable. I mean, I met so many people because, I mean, he had me on the trade show trail. I tell you that much. He had me at 2 shows a month, and I met so many people. And so I really appreciate the time that I spent there. And he is an incredible speaker, and he did
mm-hmm,
have a marketing company prior to. So I can agree
yeah,
with you on that front. And I've learned a lot from him on positioning, like you said, like those words, those key words that just kind of light up your brain. Um,
yeah,
and I really appreciate the time that he spent talking to me about, how to position this or how to position that. And then also, yeah, you do something and it doesn't work. Very similar to the experience I've seen with my parents' multitude of businesses. You try it, you fail, okay, you move on, you try something else. And I think that
Yeah.
there handicaps all entrepreneurs at some point when we do fail, especially the big ones. And we just got to keep going. And
Yeah. And
yeah,
there's just such a tension between like tracking your marketing costs, right? And if you talk to guys at Profit Coach, they're going to really, hold your feet to the fire on, are you getting a return on your spend in your marketing department? So you've got like that angel on one shoulder, and then you got your devil on the other shoulder, so to speak, who's saying, this is a long game, right? I have faith that this is going to pay off. Investing in your real estate investor community, investing in direct mail, investing in outbound cold calling, it takes time. You have to lay the foundation, you have to build brand awareness. These chickens will come home to roost. And then you've got your profit coach or your CFO's like, hey, we're really not seeing return. We need to cut our losses here, right?
in one
So
quarter, we don't see the same
yeah,
would the turnaround for inbound because the Google Casino has had years and years to optimize, getting all sevens, on the pull. And we want that too, of course, but you're so right. And I have some amazing clients who have adopted, softwares like Discover and gotten appointment setters into, CRMs like Lead Simple and then set for their BDM and also own some of that sales ops because if you time block them correctly in 4 hours with a powerful multi-ring, integrated dialer or like, just focus, they can do 100 outbound dials. And then from there, all their automations are running and then they can help scrub, Discover and, get those leads into the CRM. They can do some sales ops. Now I've seen, some of my clients that have really adopted the concept without killing it within the first quarter because they didn't close a million deals and their very first quarter. As I was also learning how to educate why this role is imperative. But what I see too is like, to your point of like, there's so much segmentation we're forgetting about in what a marketing department even is. Like sales ops, outbound sales, inbound sales, conversion, those are all different roles. And then in marketing, like we have design, we have SEO management, we have ad spend management. We also have, ensuring that our value proposition, to your point, like the website is updated, is in line with all of our social media campaigns. And, you know, you're not going to have all of those roles and the ability to bring all of them on at one time. But if you can at least respect the segmentation of what those departments look like from, an incredibly large company that does have those departments segmented out. Now, no one's running a perfect ship. We're always repairing it at all times. That's just how it goes. But if you respect that, you are going to have a much less difficult time knowing what role you need to bring on next. And that's where I see a lot of entrepreneurs that have been in the game for a really long time and still only have maybe a couple VAs, and they're drowning because they're still owning the outcome of everything. I mean, those roles and the segmentation of those roles, like it's just not super apparent to them. So tell me a little bit more about, what do you see coming, down the pipe for future hires in marketing? Because that, like, it's not marketing versus sales anymore. We're married. We love each other, bring me leads. I will help close your leads. Let's all get commission. I pay my marketing people for SQLs that come in too, which I think is rare. I haven't seen that a lot in our industry, at least.
yeah. Now, I am not a marketing expert. I actually think I'm kind of weak in that area, but I think that I'm looking forward to seeing our industry wrap their arms around some of these initiatives and some of these new ways of getting in front of customers. I do think what has to be at the heart of it all, though, is like you have to have in your heart as the business owner a desire to provide value for a segment, for a well-defined segment of people.
Mhm.
If you start with that, if you start with who are my people, who do I want to serve? That's a great line from a friend of mine, Adam Lehman. He turned me on to that years ago. I've never forgotten it. Who do you want to serve? specifically, not just anyone who owns a rental property, not just any, single family rental owner in my city, but specifically get really specific. And then, like, in what capacity do you want to engage with this person? Like, how do you want to show up for them? And what's the value that you want to deliver? I think once you can get crystal clear on those things, then you figure out, how can I creatively and consistently get in front of this person, regardless of whether they buy, but just because these are my people, I want to serve them. I
Yep.
want to share what we have to offer. I want to share free resources. I want to connect them with people who are going to help them be successful. Maybe one day they buy from us, and maybe one day they don't. Maybe one day they refer someone to us. But like, it has to start from there. Mm-hmm.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like, you know your niche, you know what you like, who you want to be in front of. And part of, going back to my favorite book, Masters of Scale, I've read it so many times, killing that desire to scale in the sense of greed and just wanting to acquire 5,000 people tomorrow or 500 people tomorrow versus who do I really want to help is what is going to allow you to succeed and prosper. But if we're helping the whole ecosystem, that's a win. That's a huge, huge
Yeah.
win. And there's so much room for all of us to succeed too. So I cannot agree with you more on that front as well. And I'm just really excited, to hear from you, someone who's very well respected in our industry, that some of these mastermind groups that maybe I'm not in because I am the outbound outlaw at the moment. I have done some shows and I miss my crew every time I go. I'm like giving all the hugs as much as I can when I see them. But I love hearing that there's so much more evolution going on.
And yeah, and I think this is going to look different for everyone. And Jordan Moyla has an amazing podcast on this from years and years and years ago called "Your Leads Are Not a Growth Strategy." I re-listen to it every year. It was one of those episodes.
I don't
Yeah,
think
it was like it was a mono. It's just him, so
is
it's
that
one of
the
those
profitable
episodes.
property management
Yeah,
podcast? Okay,
mm-hmm.
gotcha.
And it's just him. He goes solo for like 20 minutes on this topic, and what I really believe is that successful marketing is going to look very different for each company
Yeah,
and each entrepreneur, because they're going to have a different segment that they want to provide value to, and they're going to resonate with different ways that they can provide that value. For some people, that may be an unbelievable outbound campaign. For some people, that may be community events. For some people, that may be an incredibly successful podcast like Mark in Chicago. For some people, that may be killing it with an email newsletter. For some people, that may be an unbelievable referral network through realtors, brokers, bankers, and folks like that. All of those are valid, and there's been multi-thousand unit management companies built on using each of those strategies. But what you really can't do is just copy paste what someone else has already done. It's not going to hit the same. And what you also can't do is everything I just mentioned, right?
absolutely. And you also can't kill someone else's concept just because it didn't work for you. And that's great that, you tried it and it didn't work for you. Try another one. That doesn't mean that
Yeah.
that particular way of doing it isn't prosperous or profitable. But I agree with you on that front as far as just ensuring find your niche and go for it, and that's great, but then also respect that there are others doing it differently that are also at the same door count as you, are also growing at the same rate as you, or are as profitable as they want to be. There are no kind of small fish when I think of, portfolio size. It's just, what is the goal of that owner operator? Because if it's 50 self-managed properties, phenomenal. That's huge. I mean, it's
Yeah.
impressive. If it's 5,000, third party, great. If it's 200, also great. I've seen way more profitable property management companies only rocking about 250 doors versus 5,000. And then I've seen it on the flip side where it's like
Yeah.
complete mess. And then, the 5,000 is super profitable too. But well, yeah, I think this is going to be really good because you've got my gears turning. So I'm definitely going to go listen to that episode for sure. And I just appreciate your unbiasedness and your ability to just kind of see everybody, what everybody's doing, And one of my favorite things about you is I never hear you talk negatively about any vendor. You just see, or any kind of way about doing things. You just see, hey, I tried this. It didn't work for me, but I heard it worked for this person, and that's great for
Yep.
them. And that's all I've ever wanted too, was like, just, it doesn't have to be a battlefield out there, y'all. It really
Yeah.
doesn't. We can all be, referring leads. If you have somebody and it didn't work out for them, I'm happy to help. If I have somebody who didn't work out for me, I'm happy to send them your way.
Yep.
And same with any sort of concept that I roll out. I will take ownership when it dies. I will, send a blast and be like, hey, I'm killing this. Didn't work for XYZ. Thank you for your trust as always, as I'm alpha testing and figuring out what we're going to do and what we want to do. And here are all the wins that we had. So,
Yeah.
Peter, do you have anything else that you'd like to say before we wrap up here today?
I mean, I'd love to count any of your audience as an email subscriber. I write a newsletter for our industry. It goes out every Friday. So you can sign up on my website, peterlohmann.com.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love writing it. It's kind of like a way for me to give back to the industry and share some of my observations, industry news, tactical tips and tricks that have worked for me, stuff like that.
It is amazing. And I will be incredibly honest. When I first started RevUp Mastery, I used one of your blogs in all of my email campaigns.
Nice. Thank
Yeah.
you for that.
Uh, well, it was one of my favorite training tools, especially for my appointment setters on like what is property management. And then here are the leading vendors in the space. Here are the leading like softwares in
Yeah.
the space. Here are some of the nuances. And it was a great training tool for them. And I get a lot of value from reading your like articles. So keep that up. It is awesome. And
Thank
I'm
you.
excited to see it continue to grow. And
Great.
and can you talk a little bit more about the other Lead Simple consultants aside from you and me that are on your list? I know Deb Newell, Todd
Yeah.
Whiteside.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I don't actually do like process building as a service,
The
but there is a
consulting for Lead Simple. Yeah, got
correct.
it.
Yep.
Mhm.
But I maintain a list on my website, on my blog, of folks who do that. So if you need help building out your processes, so yeah, we've got you on that list. We've got Kelly Segreto. We've got Ben Servin, who used to work at Lead Simple. Deb Newell, of course. Todd and Abby are on that list. Matt Tringali.
Yes.
So bunch of people who I know personally. I haven't used them myself to build out processes because I've built out my own, but from all accounts, those are all great options for people who are looking for, help with that.
Yeah, and none of us are in the bloody waters. We're always like, "Hey, I'm at capacity. Can you help this person?" And so
Yeah.
I really love that about that list. And I meant Lopez. Sorry, Kristen. I know you're not.
Kristen. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So she's been doing a great job. I love her copy. She's such a wonderful writer. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, thank you so much, Peter, for being on here and
Yeah.
spending.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it. And I am looking forward to seeing you when I see you, maybe broker owner.
Yeah.
Uh,
Broker owner for sure.
yeah. All right. Sounds good.
All right.
All right.